pour one of these. I don't know how you guys determine the viscosity or the thickness of your mix, but I'll show you the way I do it. So the first thing you want to do is, I got some water, and this is just regular paint tint. This is something that you guys will figure out exactly how much of what to add to what, but I'm just for the sake of this demo, I just add some in there. So the critical thing here is that use a pigment that is water soluble, right? So when you actually make it, add it to the water, it actually changes the color of the water. The other stuff that you guys were using is actually a powder, right? That does not dissolve. It just stays floating in the water. Although it may look like it's dissolved, it's not. So using a paint tint, I think, is the ideal way to go about it. Anyway, you add your tint to the water before you start mixing. You have your powder. The way that I do it is that I put half as much water as I need volume of the pour. So put half as much water in the container, add your tint to it, and then you add the powder to the water very slowly, right? So that it basically submerges as soon as it hits the water, and you keep adding until it starts to form a crust or an island on top, right? So I'm just adding this regularly, and it's just going right in, right? It's going right in, and water's coming up top. I don't know if you actually see this, but I just keep going, and usually by the time you're done, you'll end up with twice as much mixed hydrocal as you did water initially. So as soon as you start seeing a little island up top, right, let me bring this over. So the key here is not to change it, not to stir it, not to do anything to it. Where's the container? Here it is. I'm using the reverse camera on this. So, oh, there it is. You see that little island up top? So I'm going to keep adding on the perimeters, right? Wherever I see water, I add the hydrocal. And you want to spread it in there, not as clumps, but spread it as best as you can. So the critical thing here is to not mix it until you're done with the actual addition of the hydrocal, right? And wherever you see water, you can add a little bit more until you have a nice little coating. Not entirely. So at this point, you can decide, do I want it looser or do I want it thicker? Usually the perfect amount is so that it gives you a little bit of island stuff on top, right? And then you have water very loose on the sides. And as soon as you have this mixture, now you can add the mixture. So just be careful not to introduce air into it too much. Don't fluff it. You can still stir and agitate internally, as long as you don't add water to add air to the mixture. And then once you have this, you have your mold prepared. Just make sure it's clean. And what I do is I start with right in the middle. I don't go in the rounds. I go right in the middle and then let it just seep into wherever it needs to go. And as soon as you start seeing it come up the side walls, what I do is I stop and I run my fingers right on the letters, right? I'm just running my fingers on the letters to release any air that's trapped between the tiny spaces of the letters, right? Now here, give it a little bit of a shake. You can see a line, right? You can actually see the line where the bottom of the